What if I told you that America once had a golden opportunity to claim the Yucatán Peninsula, one of the most strategically placed and resource-rich regions in the Americas, but let it slip through its fingers? That's right. In the midst of rebellion, chaos, and a potential power shift that could have changed the course of history, the United States stood at a crossroads. Was it political turmoil, fear of overreach, or something far more surprising that stopped them? This story isn't just about a mischance. It's about a mystery that could rewrite what you thought you knew about history. And trust me, the truth is far stranger than fiction. The Yucatán Peninsula isn't just a slice of Mexico. It's a historical enigma that defies simplicity. Imagine a land where the Maya civilization once flourished, cities rising out of dense jungles, teeming with innovation and spiritual wonder. Then came the Spanish, whose hunger for conquest and gold carved a new chapter into the peninsula's story. Yet, Yucatan's destiny was never straightforward. This wasn't a land that bowed easily to empires. It was a place that flirted with independence and then found itself tethered back to Mexico, always balancing on the knife's edge of history. The Maya civilization, with its astounding resilience, bore the scars of colonization while fiercely guarding its soul. The Spaniards brought cathedrals, cannons, and the weight of European power, but the Maya spirit endured beneath the surface. When Mexico finally gained independence, Yucatán faced a question that echoed through its valleys and coasts. Should it stay, or should it break away? Independence wasn't just a dream here. It was a declaration, a roar against centuries of subjugation. But how could Yucatán chart its course in a world dominated by empires jostling for supremacy? As the Mexican-American War raged on, whispers of U.S. annexation reached Yucatan's shores. The Monroe Doctrine painted the Americas as a no-go zone for European powers. But what about the ambitions of the United States itself? The peninsula's prime location and abundant resources weren't secrets, they were magnets. Here lay a prize that could tilt the scales of power, a gateway to control the Gulf of Mexico and beyond. Yet, the Yucatán danced between autonomy and the magnetic pull of larger nations. Who would rise next chapter? Through it all, Yucatán became a living chessboard, with the Maya, Mexico, and the looming specter of American intervention vying for control. Each move added tension to the air, like a storm building on the horizon. And then, rebellion erupted, a fiery clash that would pit ancient roots against modern ambitions. What follows isn't just a conflict. It's a race war, a battle that would shake the foundations of Yucatán and leave the region forever changed. Following Yucatan's tumultuous history, the mid-19th century saw the region plunge into one of its most harrowing chapters, the Caste War of 1847. This wasn't just a rebellion. It was an explosion of centuries-old tension, a race war ignited by the Mayas' unrelenting desire to reclaim what was stolen. Picture a people who had once built towering cities and complex societies, now driven to the brink by oppression. The Maya rose with a fury that echoed through the dense jungles and into the fortified towns, leaving the land stained with the struggle for survival. This wasn't a war fought in neat lines or open fields. It was guerrilla warfare at its rawest. The Maya turned their deep knowledge of the land into their greatest weapon, striking with precision and vanishing into the shadows. Meanwhile, white settlers scrambled to hold onto their claims, building makeshift defenses against an enemy that knew every inch of the terrain. It was a brutal, bloody stalemate that turned villages into battlegrounds and forests into graves, each side determined to break the other's resolve. As the Caste War raged, it drew the gaze of powerful neighbors. The United States, guided by its Monroe Doctrine, saw an opportunity or a threat. Could a destabilized Yucatán compromise the region's delicate balance of power? American leaders whispered of intervention, some dreaming of annexation. Imagine the Yucatán, with its resources and strategic position, slipping under U.S. control, a prospect that sent ripples of unease through Mexican sovereignty. The peninsula wasn't just fighting its internal demons. It had become the chessboard of geopolitical intrigue. But the rebellion's fire was too fierce to be easily extinguished. The Yucatán remained locked in chaos, its future uncertain, its people divided. Yet, amid the conflict, whispers of external intervention grew louder. Would the United States take the leap into Yucatan's bloody quagmire? Or would internal debates keep them at bay? The answer to this pivotal question lay just beyond the horizon, as the war's embers set the stage for a new chapter in this gripping tale. As the chaos of the Caste War spread across the Yucatán Peninsula, it didn't take long for the United States to take notice. Under the Monroe Doctrine, America kept a sharp eye on anything stirring in its backyard. The question on everyone's mind was clear. Should they step in and stop the turmoil? Or was it a messy fight they'd regret getting involved in? The stakes were high. This wasn't just about helping out. It was about influence, power, and maybe even snagging Yucatán for themselves. The idea of adding Yucatán to the U.S. was like dangling candy in front of a kid. This place was packed with resources, sitting perfectly between the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Imagine what that kind of addition could mean for trade and military strategy. And of course, it was easy to dress up intervention as a noble cause, helping a struggling neighbor and all that. But let's be real. Behind the talk of good intentions was a lot of self-interest and a chance to grab more land. Still, jumping in wasn't so simple. The U.S. had just wrapped up the Mexican-American War, and folks weren't exactly eager for another round of conflict. Plus, bringing in a place with a strong Maya presence wasn't without controversy. Would it mess with the balance of power back home? Was it worth the risk of ticking off Mexico even more? Every decision seemed loaded with complications, making Yucatán less of a prize and more of a potential headache. In the end, the peninsula's future seemed like a coin toss. Would the U.S. swoop in as a hero or as a land-hungry power? The debates dragged on, but one thing was certain. The idea of annexation wasn't going away anytime soon. The question was, when would America make its next move? And with so much hanging in the air, Yucatan's next chapter was bound to be just as wild. Picking up from the heated debates over intervention, the idea of annexing Yucatán didn't just fizzle out. It hit a wall of political chaos. In the U.S., leaders were split right down the middle. Some saw Yucatán as a golden opportunity, a chance to expand American influence and secure a new gem in the Gulf. But others? They worried about everything from the cost of another conflict to the cultural and political challenges that annexing Yucatán could bring. It wasn't a smooth sell, and tensions in Congress made sure this dream stayed just that, a dream. Back in Yucatán, things weren't exactly calm either. The peninsula was still reeling from the violence of the Caste War, with peace feeling like a distant hope. Temporary treaties were signed, but everyone knew they were more like band-aids than solutions. People on the ground were torn between the desire for stability and the fear of losing autonomy, either to Mexico or the looming shadow of U.S. intervention. It was a moment where every decision seemed like the wrong one, no matter which way you turned. Meanwhile, the U.S. had its hands full with its own drama. Slavery debates, regional tensions, and post-Mexican-American War fatigue made the annexation of Yucatán a tough sell. Politicians were worried about upsetting the balance of power in the Union, especially with the Maya-heavy population of the peninsula. The timing was terrible, and the internal squabbles all but ensured that the U.S. wouldn't move forward. Yucatán, for now, would remain just out of reach. But this wasn't the end of the story. With the U.S. stepping back and the temporary peace treaties barely holding, Yucatan's future was still hanging by a thread. Could the peninsula find a way to fully reunite with Mexico? Or would another twist throw it back into turmoil? If you're fascinated by stories like this, don't miss out. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Let's uncover more untold histories together. Who knows what surprises we'll find next? With the U.S. stepping back and annexation no longer on the table, Yucatan's fate seemed to rest squarely in Mexico's hands. By 1849, after years of rebellion and shaky treaties, the peninsula made its way back into the fold. But let's be clear, this wasn't a smooth reunion. The scars of the Caste War were still fresh, and mistrust lingered between the central government and the Yucatan's leaders. It was less of a heartfelt embrace and more of a cautious handshake, with both sides keeping one eye on the door. Mexico, eager to solidify its sovereignty, knew it couldn't afford to lose Yucatán again. The region was just too important, strategically, economically, and symbolically. Efforts were made to rebuild trust and restore some semblance of order, but the process was slow and often met with resistance. The Maya people, who had fought so fiercely during the Caste War, were still wary of centralized control. And who could blame them? Their history with outside powers had been anything but kind. Meanwhile, Yucatan's leaders had to walk a fine line. They needed Mexico's support to stabilize the region, but didn't want to give up too much autonomy. It was a political dance full of compromises and quiet power plays. The peninsula's unique identity, shaped by the Maya civilization and its colonial past, set it apart from the rest of the country. Balancing that identity with the demands of a central government was no easy task, and the tension was palpable. As Yucatan settled back into Mexican control, the peninsula's story didn't end, it evolved. The scars of rebellion, the whispers of annexation, and the weight of its complex history shaped every decision moving forward. But if there's one thing history has shown us, it's that the Yucatan Peninsula is never far from the spotlight, its story always ready to take another unexpected twist. Now that you've uncovered the twists and turns behind America's decision not to claim the Yucatan, how does it feel to hold a piece of history that most people don't even know exists? Think about it. This isn't just a tale of missed opportunities. It's a reminder of how the smallest decisions can ripple across centuries. Are you starting to see how much history is still hidden, waiting to be explored? This is just one of countless untold stories that only a curious few ever discover. Imagine how much smarter, more informed, and ahead of the curve you'll be by diving deeper into mysteries like this. So, what do you think? Could America's hesitation have been a blessing in disguise, or a mischance that reshaped the region forever? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. You're just scratching the surface of the stories that can inspire, surprise, and elevate your perspective. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.